All right, so check this out, man. Here's what blows my mind. Every now and then in sports, you get someone who isn't just great. They feel like they're operating on a completely different frequency, like the game bends around them. And that's Zidane, dude. He's one of those rare figures who made football look like art and war at the same time. Like you're watching this guy, and it's not just about goals or stats, it's about the way he carried himself, the way he owned the biggest stages without even breaking a sweat. And then like some movie plot twist after retiring, he comes back on the sidelines and dominates all over again. Like, how insane is that, man? Being a legend once is already impossible, but doing it twice in two totally different roles, that's almost unfair. So, what I want to do is take you through this journey, break down why Zidane wasn't just another great player, another successful coach, but why his story is one of the most unique and inspiring in the entire history of sports. And trust me, if you stick around for this ride, by the end of it, you're going to understand why people talk about him like a myth, not just a man. Man, you talk about Zidane, it's like talking about some kind of football wizard, dude. Like, this guy wasn't just a player, he was an experience. And that's the thing people miss. Because when you watch highlights, you see the goals, the famous volley in the 2002 Champions League final, that insane left foot rocket into the top corner. And you're like, yeah, that's sick. But what made him legendary wasn't just those moments. It was how he moved, how he carried himself on the pitch. He had this almost balletic quality, like he was floating across the grass while 21 other dudes looked like they were in a street fight. And he's just gliding completely calm, pulling off these ridiculous roulettes and first touches that made defenders freeze like statues. And it wasn't flashy for the sake of being flashy either. It was functional, like he would turn a guy inside out with one touch and suddenly the whole game would open up. And the crazy part is he did it in the biggest matches, dude. The 1998 World Cup final, France on home soil, the pressure of an entire nation. And Zidane's like, don't worry, I got this. Scores two headers against Brazil like it's just another day at the park. And then Euro 2000, where every time France needed something, he delivered free kicks, penalties, just ice cold. Like, you couldn't rattle this guy. And the thing I love about him is he had that combination of elegance and savagery because, yeah, he looked smooth, but he'd also body someone if he had to. Strong as hell, protecting the ball like a tank with ballet shoes. It's nuts, and people forget football is a mental game too. You've got millions watching, pressure on your shoulders, defenders trying to kill you, and Zidane's playing it like Jack, improvising, finding beauty in chaos. And the funny thing is, even his mistakes became iconic, like the 2006 World Cup final, last match of his career. He Panenka chips Buffon, arguably the best keeper in the world, on the biggest stage. Like, who even has the balls to do that? And then, yeah, the headbutt, people always bring that up, but that's part of what made him human. He wasn't some robot. He was this mix of poetry and fire. And when you add it all up, it's why players and fans still talk about him like he was some mythical figure, not just a footballer. Because when Zidane touched the ball, it was like time slowed down and the whole world leaned in just to see what he was about to do next. Dude, the thing about Zidane that blows my mind is his mentality. Like, some guys are talented, right? They've got the skills, the dribbling, the highlight. But when the lights are the brightest, when the entire weight of the world is pressing down on your chest, that's when most players crack. That's when you see guys miss penalties, panic, play it safe. But Zidane, nah, man, he lived for those moments. He was like this assassin who got sharper the more pressure you put on him. Think about the 1998 World Cup final. You're playing Brazil, prime Brazil, and you're carrying the hopes of your entire country. That's insane. And what does he do? He scores two goals with his head, which wasn't even his trademark skill. Like, the guy's known for elegance with his feet. But when the game called for it, he just said, screw it, I'll beat you in the air too. And then fast forward to Euro 2000, France are struggling in the knockout round. Zidane's out there hitting clutch free kicks and calmly burying penalties like he's playing in his backyard, ice in his veins. And the best example, man, the one that really sticks, is the 2006 World Cup. Because think about it, he's 34 years old. He's supposed to be past his prime. And not only is he still dominating, he's carrying France all the way to the final. He's embarrassing guys like Brazil's defense, making legends look like kids at a training session. And then in the final itself against Buffon, one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, he has the audacity, absolute balls, to Panenka chip him in a World Cup final. Dude, that's not normal. That's not something a sane person does under that kind of pressure. That's a man who trusts himself so much. He's like, watch this, and he pulls it. And that's why people talk about him like a mythical warrior, because it wasn't just the technique, it was the psychology. He could lock in, zone out the noise, and play like he was born for the exact moment everyone else feared. And even the headbutt, people look at it as a stand, but in a way it shows you the rawness. Like, the guy wasn't afraid to go out on his terms. He wasn't going to fake being composed if he felt disrespected. He was fire and ice at the same time. And that mentality, man, that's what separates him, because legends aren't just made from talent. They're made from those split seconds where the world is watching and you either crumble or you etch your name into history. And Zidane always chose the second option.
Man, the craziest part about Zidane isn't even just what he did as a player. It's that when he jumped into manage, he pulled off something almost nobody does. Like, dude went from being this calm, elegant legend on the pitch to suddenly being the guy running Real Madrid, the most chaotic, high-pressure soap opera football club on earth. And instead of crumbling under the weight, he instantly turned him into a machine. Like, think about this. It was his first big coaching job. No warm-up, no mid-table club to learn the ropes. You're straight into managing Cristiano Ronaldo, Sergio Ramos, Marcelo, Bale, Benzema, Mojo, locker room full of massive egos and world-class players. And instead of being intimidated, he walked in with this aura. Like, the moment Zidane entered the room, everybody shut up and listened, because it's Zidane, the guy who already proved everything as a player. And what's wild is he didn't just steady the ship, he made history. 3 Champions Leagues in a row, back to back to back, which had literally never been done in the modern era. And he did it with this ridiculous composure. Like, you never saw him losing his mind on the touchline. He wasn't Mourinho screaming at fourth officials or Guardiola overthinking every play. Zidane just stood there in his suit, hands in his pockets, watching calmly, but behind that stillness was this insane tactical brain, and even more importantly, man-managed, because that's the hardest part at Madrid. It's not just drawing tactics on a whiteboard, it's convincing superstars to buy in, to sacrifice, to rotate, to put ego aside, and somehow he got Ronaldo to run, he got Modric and Kroos to give everything, and managed the Gareth Bale drama without blowing the whole thing up, and people underestimate how nuts that is. Like, managing Madrid is a grenade with the pin halfway out. And Zidane held it steady for years, collecting La Liga, Champions League, Super Cups, you name it. It wasn't just luck. Dude had this killer instinct. In big matches, just like when he was a player. Remember that Champions League final against Juventus? Madrid put on one of the most dominant performances ever for it, and you could feel his fingerprints all over it. Calm preparation, players peaking at the right time, no panic, just ruthless execution. And that's why when you look back at it, Zidane as a manager almost feels like a cheat code. Like, football shouldn't allow one guy to be both a legendary player and then immediately one of the most successful managers in history. It's almost unfair, but that's Zidane, man. He walked into the hottest seat in football and made it look effortless. What's wild about Zidane, man, is that his leadership style wasn't about yelling or throwing chairs or being this drill sergeant screaming at guys. It was the exact opposite. It was aura, like pure presence, the kind of thing you can't teach. Because when Zidane walks into a room, everybody knows who he is. Everybody's seen the clips, the trophies, the moments, and that creates this automatic respect. Like, you don't need to question him. You don't need him to explain why he deserves to be in charge. It's already written in his career. And that's the crazy thing, because football dressing rooms are filled with egos, especially at a place like Real Madrid. You've got Ronaldo, Ramos, Marcelo, Bale, Mojo, all these massive personalities who in any other situation might clash or test the manager, but with Zidane, they didn't, because it's Zidane, dude. He's been there. He's scored in World Cup finals. He's lifted the Champions League as a player. He's done all the things those guys dreamed of doing. And so when he told them something, it wasn't coming from a book or a theory. It was coming from experience, like battle scars, and players respond to that. They trust it. And his demeanor was fascinating too, because he wasn't trying to dominate the spotlight. He didn't make everything about himself. He was quiet, calm, but it was that calmness that made guys listen. Like, if Zidane says something, it's important, and when he didn't say anything, his silence was just as powerful. And I think that's the mark of a real leader, someone who doesn't need to scream to be heard. They control the room just by existing, and you could see it in how his players respected him. Like, look at Ronaldo, one of the biggest egos in sports history, and yet under Zidane he worked harder, he listened, he played his role, because even he looked at Zidane and thought, this guy gets it. And it's almost like he hypnotized the team with his vibe, like they'd run through walls for him without him even asking. And that's why I always say Zidane was a natural-born leader, because it wasn't about tactics on a chalkboard or being some marketing genius. It was about human connection, the way his career, his body language, his calm confidence radiated outwards, and players felt it, they fed off it. And it made them play harder, fight harder, believe more, and in sport, man, that's everything. The thing about Zidane's legacy that just blows my mind is how ridiculously rare it is. Like, we throw around the word legend so much in sports that it kind of loses meaning, but with this guy, it's legit on 2 completely different levels, because as a player, he was already immortal. You're talking about a World Cup winner, a European champion, the guy who scored one of the most iconic goals in Champions League history. A man who could walk away from the game right there and still be remembered forever. Then he turns around, and as a manager, he builds another legacy that's just as strong, and that almost never happens, man. Like, think about all the great players, Maradona, Pele, Ronaldinho, Messi's still playing, but once they're done, that's it. They live in history as player. And then think about the great managers. Ferguson, Mourinho, Guardiola, those guys weren't superstar players. They made their name only on the sidelines. But Zidane, he's both. And that's insane because you don't get that crossover. You don't get one human being a legend on the field and then turning around and being a legend on the bench. It's like if Michael Jordan retired from basketball and then came back as a coach and won 3 championships in a row, people would lose their mind. And that's what Zidane did with Madrid. 3 Champions Leagues, back to back to back, which nobody thought was possible in the modern era. And he made it look effortless, like he was born to do both. And that's why his legacy feels mythical. It's like he cracked the code of football, like he figured out how to dominate every angle of it. And it's not just the trophies, it's how he did it with this elegance, this calmness, this sense of destiny that followed him everywhere. And when people talk about football 100 years from now,
Zidane's name will always come up in 2 conversations: the conversation about the greatest players ever and the conversation about the greatest managers ever. And that's such a tiny list. It's basically just him, maybe a couple others, but none at his level. And that dual status makes him feel almost untouchable. Like you can argue Messi versus Ronaldo or Pele versus Maradona all day, but none of them have that second chapter where they conquered the game in a completely different way. And that's why Zidane's legacy is so unique. It's not just about skill or trophies. It's about being this rare figure who became a symbol of greatness in every role the sport could possibly offer. So when you look at the whole picture, man, Zidane's story is just unreal. It's like you're watching this dude bend reality twice. First as a player where he was pure magic, elegance mixed with fire, stepping up in the biggest moments like it was scripted for him. And then as a manager where he takes the most volatile, ego-packed team in the world and somehow makes them winning everything with this calm confidence that felt like he was playing chess while everyone else was still figuring out checkers. And that dual legacy, that rare status of being a legend in 2 completely different arenas, that's why his name sits in a league of its, because it's not just about the trophies, it's about the vibe, the aura, the way he carried himself through the chaos. And that's what makes him one of those once-in-a-lifetime figures we'll be talking about forever. And if there's anything to take from that, it's that greatness isn't just talent or luck, it's this insane mix of mentality, composure, and believing you belong on the biggest stage. And Zidane showed us that in the most badass way possible. So yeah, man, if you're chasing something in your life, whatever it is, go for it with that same calm conviction. Don't shy away from the pressure, lean into it, because that's where legends are made. And with that, I just want to say thank you for rolling with me through this whole ride. Good luck with whatever you're chasing, and I appreciate you guys for listening.